Hallo miteinander, I'm Geshady6 and this is Tenjou no Tempest. Last time we've learned of Yokai Mountain as a point of interest. The problem with getting there directly though is that our dynamic duo would have to pass right by the Hakure Shrine grounds. The ever so cranky Shrine Maiden Reimu is the very last person Tenchi wants to meet now, so we're gonna have to use the cover of this dense forest to navigate around. While I do agree that this is a sensible plan, this path bears its very own dangers. Some of the small platforms we encounter are unstable, and they will fall once we step on them. Enemy-wise, we also have to contend with a lot of these lightning Kidamas. Passing just under them will bait them into a very easy to counter attack, but you still shouldn't take them too lightly, as messing up the timing and getting hit will hurt quite a bit. As for the weather effect these new enemies carry, it is just a single lightning bolt. It is used up almost instantly upon activation, and is therefore pretty different from most of the other effects which are longer lasting. The lightning bolt itself cannot be controlled and may seem kind of worthless at times, but don't be fooled, there are some secret uses to be gained from it. And they will really help us out later in the stage. And we're going to want all the help that we can get. As you see, Stage 3 is the point in the game where it starts playing hardball. No, we're not talking just about a small rise in difficulty. It's really more of an unexpected difficulty spike. I remember the first time I got here. I died 6 times in total. Thrice on the level, thrice on the boss. Looking back at it, the best advice I could give you for when you try this yourself is brace your mind for some failure. The second segment of the stage has another weather puzzle very much near the start of it. Its main purpose is to introduce the abilities of the Tornado Kidamas. Countering them will create, well, a tornado of course. It will help you rise up high into the air. Well, would you look at that? There's even more gimmicks for us to play around with. You know what you can do with the seesaw if you just try hard enough? You can of course make a human catapult out of it. There's one thing that you really need to keep in mind for this. It does matter for your flight path where exactly on the seesaw you stand as you drop the keystone. Yes, physics are important, as it's perfectly possible to mess up and undershoot. Next up, we have a pretty big arena-like encounter to handle. It's best to stay away from the bottom center here, as that consists of many falling platforms. Since we have so much energy right now, here's one of my favorite supers, Peerless Blade. It hits really hard, and I like its overall directness and big area that it covers. But it does cost a whopping 5 units, and can only be used on the ground. I still think it can help though. What also helps is a game mechanic that we haven't even covered so far. Charge styles. When you haven't used the style for a while, it will become charged. When you finally switch to it, you will deal some extra damage for just a few moments, signified by Tenchi emitting a reddish glow. And she does just that at this very moment. It helps us kill this fairy really quickly. Charging styles only becomes available from stage 2 onward. What this basically means in terms of gameplay is that switching styles in the heat of battle is rewarded. So is not switching unnecessarily to waste charges. That little cutscene there told us that there are branching paths now. They do meet back up again later, but I still recommend you take the top one. Why? Well, just watch. Witness the carnage. Bam! I guess we rocked their world. I just love it when a game just throws some pointless fun at you once in a while. It's refreshing. The bottom path doesn't have anything that compares to that, so why would you want to go there? I went there like once, wasn't worth it. Now here's an interesting specimen, the Bentora. They are quick and sneaky and like to stay out of your immediate range. Their presence here kind of gives away who the boss is. You know, if my little hint from last time wasn't enough. And the even less subtle video title this time isn't either. If you still can't figure it out, well, you literally don't know who that person is, so don't worry your head. Catapulting yourself into that little niche there can be a bit tricky. You have to stand somewhat a third to the center of the seesaw. Otherwise you will just bump your head on the way. The Bentora come in 3 different colors, red, blue and green. All of them have different abilities, but what works against all of them is this super, earth sign, Sword of the Sky-Shaking Will. Its purpose is mostly air defense, as it has a very low, almost pitiful sideways range, to the point where the attack itself may seem kind of bad. Don't be hasty though. There is a point in this stage where it can really save your hide. We're going to get there and see the magic. Before we get to the really hairy part of this segment, let's round off the charge styles first. I must admit that I'm guilty of not always using that game mechanic to its fullest effect. Yeah, I have the really bad habit of switching styles in a calm moment. Nothing against whipping out a more strategically useful shot, but there should at least be some enemies around before you go cycling through everything, wasting charges like you don't care. It's something I put really high on my list of New Year's resolutions. Maybe it'll be the first one I ever go through with, then I'll be all virtuous. Now for this situation here, we need to be really sharp. There's about 6 or 7 fairies down below in the hip-deep water, and fighting them conventionally can end in absolute disaster. I've lost quite a few lives to them in the past. The true solution here is grabbing a bolt from the lightning Kedama and sending it down into their puddle to fry them all. That is the very special use of the lightning bolt that I talked about earlier. Basically, swimming during a storm is bad. Those fairies really should have listened to some public service announcements. But no, they thought they were so clever. Up this hill is the last type of Bentora that we haven't seen yet, the green ones. They aren't so tough. The ones that I really hate the most are the blue ones. The spears that they shoot will come out very fast and often suddenly, and if they do hit, Tenjou will flinch, leaving you stun-locked for a few moments. Other enemies will mercilessly take advantage of that. Here's someone who we should hate just as much as the Bentora, for she is their source. I don't though, because she has such a sweet smile. Enter Nuehoju. Unlike our previous opponents who were fighting us thinking they were on the path of justice, Nue just really wants to beat us up because that is funny to her. Predictable. She might be one of the few characters who's just as rotten a troublemaker as Tenjou herself. Now from what I know about the canon of Toho, the Buddhist crew is keeping Nue mostly under control, but deep inside, she is and will always stay a delinquent. At the beginning of the fight, Nue will rely mostly on her trident and low-range projectiles. It may seem very straightforward, but don't think it will stay like this. This little prankster is all about deception. She has some very strange and also confusing spell cards later on. That is partly the reason why she can be a major headache, the first real brick wall of the game for new players. Compared to our previous foes, she is in a whole different league. The upcoming spell card does incorporate this sneakiness pretty well, as it relies mostly on scare tactics. Did you see those massive spears flying around? They look pretty intimidating, right? Not really. Most of the time they will appear in a spot where you don't even have to be, and should they hit, chances are they will go through you harmlessly because of their wonky hitboxes. Now this might still just be a glitch, but I highly doubt it, as it goes so well with the overall theme of Nue. Her job description is after all, scaring people. We have now arrived at the third spell, and it's kind of similar to the very first one, except that we are now pursued by these homing shadow snakes. They are very annoying due to their overall clinginess. Since they have very little health, what works best here are light, easy to use and cost-efficient shots. That's why we're still packing Genfudo's Barrage and non-conceptual Arrow. Even though you'd think they'd be a bit outdated by stage 3, they still have their uses. All it takes is just 2 more swipes now and we're moving on. Now the next spell card is a really interesting one. Quite a unique one for this game, as it's more of a puzzle than anything else. At the very start of it, Nue will transform into an invincible cloud. Brute force won't get you anywhere here, so you have to be more tricky. Your actual objective is leading the arrows that are constantly fired upon you into the mentioned cloud. Once you did that twice, Nue will swoop back down again to attack you in her standard form. Obviously, that is your chance to deal damage. Now what you must be wondering is, how are you supposed to figure out something so cryptic, except by sheer chance and observation? The answer? You don't. because we are all Baka Gaijin. You see, the solution is actually a cultural reference. The original Nua of Japanese mythology was killed when a samurai first shot it with an arrow in its cloud form, and once it fell down, it was stabbed to death. And there's your bit of trivia for the day, brought to us of course by our friendly source, Cogwheel. So, we're about to face the final spell card, and this time they're both polarized. One of them is challenging but manageable, the other is notoriously murderous among players of this game. It's a strong contender for the hardest instance in the game, so guess which one we got? The awful one. For it, Nua has become... I don't actually know. Or wait, yes I do. An undefined fantastic object, of course. The object itself only attacks rarely. What's really the problem are the minions that keep spawning infinitely. Really, they will kick your ass if you let them. And the more damage you deal to the boss, the more of them will stick around. There's only two good tips that I can give you for this. One, keep in motion and don't get greedy with your attacks. That way the Bentora won't get a good grip on you. In other words, play a hit and run strategy. And hint number 2, keep an airbase super handy for when you reach the second half. We have just that in the form of Sword of the Sky Shaking Will, and we have used it to perfection. Really, this can go horribly wrong. Even at this point I sometimes lose. And that means we're doing the whole boss fight. Game can be pretty unforgiving if it wants to. With Nua beaten to a pulp now, we could extort some information from her. We'd like that, but of course, Yukari comes along to foil our plans, shatter our dreams. Remember the start of the Let's Play, and you know that she doesn't have the best intentions for us. Best intentions for us. I've got no idea what made me say that. Once again, history repeats itself, and we are sent to who knows where, even leaving little Tay behind. I hope Yukari doesn't turn our friend into rabbit stew. Unless she sold us out, of course. If so, leave some for us, will you? I'm Gash86, this was Tenjou no Tempest, and next time we run right into hell and back. Bis bald!